So we're bringing you up to speed on what's been happening in the Lowcountry marketplace through the end of October. So we've got those stats, and also just a little tip about what to expect here at the tail end of the year. It might be surprising about the amount of activity in our marketplace. So let's get after it. All right, Chris, so here we are at the middle part towards the tail end of November. And, this is a time of year that everybody's kind of focused on the holidays and that sort of stuff. And we want to talk about whether or not that means that our market goes quiet. And all of a sudden, maybe it's like, oh, yes, I'll just see you in January, or I'll see you in the spring and that sort of thing. And we're having that kind of conversation. But before we kind of get to that data that I think is going to be enlightening to folks, we look at the data through the end of October, and a couple things stood out to me. One is that we're still at a sales price to list price ratio that's around 98% in the marketplace. Now, at the top of the pandemic market, it was over 100%, but it's still holding really, really strong there. The other thing that I noted was that the average days on market has really popped up. It's actually, so year over year, it's actually popped up to about 41% from where it was this time last year, which is pretty interesting. And yet, here it is, prices are still staying strong. They're up again. The average sales price in the marketplace is now just under $700,000. And we really had good year over year data through the end of October, except that the number of closed sales in October of this year compared to October last year was down about 5%. But the thing that happened this year, and we talked about it before, was the back to school period was a pretty heavy time of distraction. It seemed like it was really robust this year. A lot of people traveled for that. It seemed like our market got quiet for 2, maybe almost 3 weeks, quieter during that period of time. And so here we are now, you're talking about 60 days later, you're going to tend to see a dip because we saw a dip in terms of new transactions then. So, but let's talk about whether or not this is a time. I think people think, oh, it's the beach and things get quiet during the holidays and a lot of people are going to be traveling, etc. But, we look back at what happened last year historically and also sort of what's already happened in the month of November. Think about, and let's talk about how robust November and December were actually last year.
Yes, it was very robust, and it is again right now. I mean, this market it gets quieter. It does get quieter. It's not gonna, and we are gonna see a spike coming the first of the year. But last year, the first 2 weeks of November, we had, I think, homes and villas in our market. We had 173 thereabouts go under contract. Properties go under contract.
Sure.
Just those first 2 weeks. This was last year, 2022. This year so far, we're up to 217 in the first 2 weeks of November.
Period of time. Yeah.
Same period of time. Now, last year, there was 433 contracts written between November and December, the tail end. So We're already halfway past that. I think it's setting up for an active end of the fourth quarter here for 2023. There's a lot of advantages for being on the market now as opposed to waiting.
So think about sellers, right? So we're having a lot of those conversations right now. They're like, basically, I'll see you in, like I said, I'll see you in January, or we'll list in the spring. That's a good time to list, right? It's like, listen, right now there may be some advantages for a seller. You may have a seller that may have a tax advantage potentially to sell either after the start of the year, just after the start of the year, or frankly, maybe to close before the end of this year. There may be some advantages for that. Maybe they're seeing a gain and they want to offset that with some losses that they've got in their whole tax kind of portfolio. The other thing is that with sellers, my general sense is people are traveling here, right? It's a busy time of year. So you may actually have really good, ripe, qualified buyers that are on site now or into the tail end of the year where they don't have to travel to come down. You think about, you look at this activity, so many people have become accustomed to buying sight unseen or on a virtual show rating, that sort of thing. But it's always nice to touch it, feel it, smell it, be present to enjoy the decision making on that. And we're constantly seeing right now, we just had 2 this week, where people are flying in town, deadheading, basically coming in, looking at it, and flying back out. Yeah. And so there may be some advantage to somebody who's already ripe and really in a buying position that's in town during the holidays that a seller might enjoy on that. And the other thing is, not all sellers are getting that message that this can actually be a robust time to be on the market. They're thinking it's quiet, it's the holidays, etc. So there actually may be less competition for a seller.
Yeah, less competition. That's great. We do expect, I mean, if you look at last year, I mean, the number of new listings that hit the market come January, the first 2 months of January, I mean, the first January and February compared against November and December,
Right.
is a 40% increase of inventory that hit the market at that time. So if I'm a seller, do I want to be in a market where there's less inventory, there's less competition, more eyeballs are on me, or do I want to wait and be in a market with more competition? And it's not just having more competition, but sellers or potential sellers that wait, what you're also waiting for is, what does your competition do? Where do they come on the market? What happens if your competition comes on a market at a price point lower than kind of where you were thinking you wanted to come
Right.
for a like property? You're going to have to now position against them
Sure.
at that price.
So you kind of get lost in the mix, or you may be subject to the mix at that time, as opposed to maybe standing out and being a solo player.
Right.
And you think about with regard to buyers, again, there's the other side of that coin. You may find a buyer may find a seller who really does want to sell, and they could maybe find a seller who's a little bit more flexible this time of year, because there may be some advantages for them wanting to get sold right now. And I think about also buyers might be in a position where it would be advantageous for them to think, okay, if I buy now, maybe close before the end of the year, early January, that's a really good time to be coming in. Let's say you got a property you're going to put on the rental market. That's a good time to come in town, maybe do some fix-ups, maybe interview some companies to be prepared to get that property set. So there may be some advantages for buyers to think about being active right now, too.
I mean, buyers right now, but there aren't as many buyers in the marketplace actively pursuing real estate during these times of distraction.
Right.
So if I'm a buyer, I have less buyer competition.
Correct.
So the chance of me putting in a singular offer increase now, as opposed to waiting until all of a sudden all the buyers are back in and wanting to make a decision.
Yeah, so really kind of a surprising amount of activity happens this time of year.
It does.
Especially because you've got the ability for people to perform remotely. And so maybe distraction doesn't get in town in the way. But again, I think most buyers are not getting that message. I think most sellers are not getting that message. So the ones that are, you guys, there may be some advantage of that. The other thing we look at is that we know folks, there's a strong tendency to decorate your home during the holidays, right? So if we're talking to you and you're a seller that's thinking, hey, that message resonates with me, this might be an advantageous time to come on the market, call us before you fully decorate your house, right? Because that's going to be a timestamp on the photography. And some folks have their decorations up all the way through the month of December, sometimes into January. And so if you're thinking about doing that, call us and let us take some photos ahead of that, so that maybe we can do the rest of the house that isn't maybe fully decorated, and you can get a full photo set to launch right now, even during the holidays, right?
Really smart.
Yeah,
Really smart.
yeah. So anyway, as always, we're always wishing everybody a happy holiday season, of course. But just remember, it's a particularly busy time of year sometimes for the people that have the advantage. And we look forward to talking to you all soon.